Hello, everybody, and welcome to a fifth Godzilla podcast episode. And I have a very special YouTuber guest on here. You probably know him and growing up with Godzilla, and here he is the one and only Donny Winter. How you
Hello,
been,
my.
Don?
I'm great. How have you been? It's great to be here.
And I'm doing good, and I'm glad to have you. You are my very first special guest on here.
Well, I'm honored. That makes me so happy. Thank you for thinking of me.
Hey, you're welcome. And and today we will be talking about the sequel to Mothra vs. Godzilla in 1964 that was released in the same year as the sequel. We'll be talking about Ghidorah, the three-headed monster.
One of my favorite Godzilla movies. If anything, I think it might be my favorite Showa era Godzilla film. I don't know where it ranks for you, but for me, it's pretty much at the top.
Yeah, and this film is also it has the very first appearance of King Ghidorah. And
Yeah. So well, it's interesting because I think the one thing that this film does well is, well, I mean, it does many things well, but we can tell, especially based on what they did with King Kong versus Godzilla, Mothra versus Godzilla, that they were starting to create like their own cinematic universe, right? Like I always say that Toho did it way before Marvel ever did this.
yeah, that's what many fans thought of it.
Yeah, so like whenever I watch Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, I'm just like, this is basically Avengers when you think about it, except kaiju.
Yeah, and it also has Randon's second appearance. Yeah,
Yeah. So we see Godzilla appears, Rodan appears, Mothra's in it. Of course, Mothra makes me so happy. And then we have Ghidorah, and well, I mean, if we just go over and describe the plot of the film, right? The film essentially is about a meteor that falls to Earth, and essentially it ends up hatching into Ghidorah. And of course, Godzilla and Rodan are present. They end up being woken up. They end up battling, and then Mothra comes into the mix. And then eventually, as the film progresses, all three of them end up battling Ghidorah. But like the human characters were pretty interesting, right? Like I know there's that there's Princess. What is her name? Salno, I think her name is
yeah, and, but
Salno. Yeah.
yeah, but in two cuts, like both original Japanese and in the English dub, they both in both cuts they have different names.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what there's the
I
one
think
named
his name
Princess
is
Song.
Sona, is it or
Something like that. I've watched both, but it's been a while since I've watched the English cut. I'm at the point. This sounds super arrogant to me, but I'm at the point where I just watched the Japanese version. So,
yeah, because I just watched both cuts of the film.
oh,
Yeah,
you just did like right before this?
yeah, I mean days ago I did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I have a question for you. Like what were the big differences that you noticed between the two versions?
well, I'm glad you brought that up. What I noticed the both differences, I mean, what I noticed the differences are the movie posters, the original and the US poster. It's just the title name. For the US poster, it just says Ghidorah the three-headed monster, which is used in the original Japanese, but there was a missing letter in there for Ghidorah because there was an O missing.
Hmm. Yeah, it's funny that we're talking about this because I didn't know. Well, I will preface by saying that my first Godzilla film that I ever watched was Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, the Showa era film. I didn't know that Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster existed until I checked out a book in my library in elementary school. This was like way back in the 90s, eons ago. There is this book called, it was just titled Godzilla, and I believe the author's name was Ian Thorne. I think that's, I mean, if you saw a picture of the book, it might seem familiar to you because it used to be super duper popular. Well, I didn't know about the film until I actually read that book. And I ended up not watching the actual film until I was, I think, like a late teenager. Like I was like 17 or 18. That was the first time I ever watched it. So it was very surreal for me to be able to finally get to see it after all those years of knowing about it.
Interesting. And I didn't discover that film until my teenage years. I mean, I think I was I think it was before my teenage years. I think it was just the beginning of it. I mean, I discovered that film when Classic Media first re-released these some of these Shona classic films on DVD. When I first discovered it, I well, like, wow, I gotta see this one. I mean, it was interesting. I mean,
Well, I mean, we all know that I'm a shameless Mothra fan, right? So when I found out that Mothra was in it, I was just like, I need to see this film right now.
yeah,
And then I ended up watching it and I was just like, yes, she's in it and she kicks butt, sort of.
yeah. I mean, let me tell you the differences. Let me tell you the differences of Mothra. I mean, in this film, I mean, in that one scene, that's that little show called "What Are They Doing Now?" I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
always in the two guys that had introduced the twin fairies who play once again by the Peanuts.
Mm-hmm.
They but they said that one of the Mothras died. Yeah,
I know, which is so sad. So that's, I mean, I think that's one of my favorite aspects of this film, though. Not that Mothra dies, of course. That's never one of my favorite aspects. But the fact that the film kind of establishes continuity with the prior Godzilla films. Because Mothra versus Godzilla and Ghidorah the Threaded Monster were released the same year. After the success of Mothra versus Godzilla, which was very successful, they quickly were like putting Ghidorah the Threaded Monster into production and so on and so forth. But like we see in the story that they really do the prior films justice, like you were saying, by seeing the twin fairies and them providing some sort of explanation as to why there is only one Mothra larva as opposed to two, right? So I
yeah,
thought that was very interesting that they were creating that continuity, which is something that we really don't get in the later Showa era Godzilla films.
yeah. And also say when they say when the other one died. I mean, I'm kind of thought about this. I mean, like, I don't know. They talk about the adult Mothra from Mothra versus Godzilla. The one, the adult form died after she fought Godzilla before the babies were born, or are they talking about the other larva baby died?
Mhm. In the Japanese version, I believe that they are referring to the actual larva, the baby. That
Yeah.
that it died after after they like it was injured during the battle with Godzilla and didn't recover or something to that effect.
Oh yeah, when one of them grabs Godzilla by the tail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, I
And
was just gonna say, I was looking at the comments and Goji fan 1998. Hello, my friend. It's good to see
hi,
you.
hi, yeah,
He
hi, my
says
friend.
there was a different color for King Ghidorah before it was chosen to be gold. Yes, Ghidorah actually had kind of like rainbow wings ish.
Yeah, and then the color for the neck and the head was we color blue, but it said it never happened in the film. But if you look
That'd
at
be
the
that'd
movie
be so strange.
yeah, if you look at the movie poster shots, I mean, they just added some colors in it, and they just added rainbow and blue color for Ghidorah. Right? And I what I heard. on stage on in the set. I mean, one of the people they I think they said they also found the actual blue color of Ghidorah on set, but said they never used it. They just yeah, I think they said there was two Ghidorah suits.
Oh, I didn't know that. I
I
thought they
mean,
had just altered the original one, but it's possible.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, but I'm not sure, but that's what I heard.
So Goji Fan 1998 says that AJ Subaraya wanted Ghidorah to have a crimson color. Interesting. And this film marks the last appearance of the Peanuts, who played the Shobijin. Yes, unfortunately. Granted, I did enjoy the other iteration of Mothra's fairies in Ebera Horror of the Deep. I'm trying to remember who they were. Were they Pear Bambi, I think? If memory serves me correctly. Um, but it will like design aside, like I'm wondering if they went with the gold color simply to make Ghidorah seem more otherworldly, to make him seem more alien. Um, Maybe it made him seem a little bit more intimidating to be one color as opposed to multiple colors. That's just my theory, though.
Yeah, I mean, and all of us fans are saying like, they always wonder what it's like to see Ghidra in blue and rainbow color looking in another film and somehow in the future, but it never
Right.
happened.
Yeah, unfortunately, and it's interesting considering how many times we've seen Ghidorah in future films. Like we've seen so many iterations, ranging from Ghidorah and Godzilla films to the Mothra trilogy to even a new Ghidorah in Godzilla Final Wars. Like I would have hoped that we would have gotten some multicolored one.
Yeah, and also I forgot to mention for the Mothra larva in this film, it is the same Mothra larva from Mothra versus Godzilla, but except they changed the eye color for it from blue to red.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting choice. I'm not sure why they made that choice, though. Do you know?
I mean, honestly, I think they decided to make Mothra's eyes red. I mean,
You know, just to change things up or something.
yeah, and also for in the original Japanese, they and Mothra is a female, but in the U.S. dub, they said it's a male.
Yes, yes, that actually has happened a lot throughout Godzilla films. I actually wrote a paper in college about this, surprisingly. Um, Not to nerd out too much, of course, but so every dubbed version of a Godzilla film has taken like the characters like Godzilla and Mothra and has made them male. In the original Japanese version of Godzilla, for example, Gojira 1954, Godzilla was just either referred to by name or as it. I don't recall there ever being a, you know, masculine pronoun reference to him. And they ended up doing that with Mothra as well. And this just kind of follows suit of like a multitude of different dubbing changes they did. Like for example, for Mothra versus Godzilla, like Mothra was referred to as the Thing
Yeah, like,
through a lot of the American marketing, and which drives me bananas because like it's meant to be super mysterious, but you know, obviously once you see Mothra, you know who Mothra is. It's not she's a familiar character.
yeah. So let's talk about Godzilla himself and like the Moshi Goji suit got a new head, followed after the original head was damaged during filming of Mothra versus Godzilla. I like the new head better than my option. Yeah, they
See, I didn't know that. See, I'm learning stuff during this. I did not know that there. I mean, I guess it makes sense since the design looks so different.
Yeah, I just because I mean it is the same Gochi suit, but it's just the head change.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I think the why it was damaged. I mean, in my last episode, they talked about how how the Godzilla suit was been damaged in some of the shots. I mean, he fell down on the building when his jaw breaks.
Right. I'm
Yeah,
gonna probably have Godzilla fans hate me for saying this, but but I actually agree with Goji Fan 1998 that I think the new head looks better. I don't know, like a lot of people really love the Mosu Goji suit, and I think that, I mean, it looks great, but I think they kind of made his face look like a pancake. And I prefer his face and like the suit of Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster because I feel like it's a little bit more dinosaurian looking. I think it's a little bit more expressive too, but that's just me.
yeah, and also I think also why it's been damaged is because I think the scene in Mothra versus Godzilla is Godzilla's head was on fire,
Yes, there
and that's
was, yeah,
another
a lot happened to that suit in that movie.
yeah yeah when it if you know like if you look carefully in one of the scenes where Godzilla's about to fight Rodan, Rodan's flying in the air when Godzilla turns his head, and if you look carefully at the neck, you can see a little bit of stitches.
Really? I
I
never
mean,
I'll have to look for that next time I watch it. That's interesting.
yeah, if you look back to that film, if you pause the film, if you look carefully, you see there's some like some cousin little some gluish or stitches are attached to the neck.
Interesting. That's
But it
so
might be
interesting.
visible. It's hard to tell, but to
You
me,
might have to like pause it or something, at that scene to get a closer look. At least I will.
yeah. And also another scene when Rodan was flying and knocked Godzilla on the lake. If you look carefully on the lake scene, you see some highlights of trees added.
Interesting. See, like I don't notice these small things. Well, that's probably because for me, I like whenever I watch films like this, I like analyze the plot and the characters. But I really appreciate everyone who finds those fine details. That's so cool.
Yeah, and I mean they used the same highlights for the original King Kong film from 1933.
Hmm. Yeah. So, let's talk a little bit more about Rodan from this film because this is his second appearance, right?
Yeah, this yeah. I mean, many fans are wondering if that's the same Rodan from 1956.
Right. So, like, I guess one could. I mean, the story doesn't really explain it, if memory serves me correctly, right? My understanding is that, at least that's the theory that I've always gone with, that one of those Rodans just survived in Mount Aso, or maybe there was like another egg that hatched or something
Yeah,
that didn't get destroyed in the initial eruption.
I mean, I don't know if it's like the same location where they film in the end of the original Rodan film.
I'm fairly sure that's the same volcano that they caused to erupt in the original Rodan film. I believe it was Mount Aso.
And also, I want to talk about for that scene of in both different cuts. Like when Rodan first appeared, I mean, when his war appears, when his head was sticking out, is that scene was trimmed out in the U.S. dub version.
Now that I think about it, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
I didn't think about that.
yeah. When I saw
Hmm.
it for the first time when I owned the you know, Criterion Blu-ray version, I mean, when I saw this scene, I was like, it looks kind of look creepish looking, and also when he first fly in the air and after got out, I mean, he has a little Godzilla's war in it.
Hmm.
When I watched it, I
Yeah,
was like, is Godzilla coming?
yeah, yeah. Goji fan makes an interesting point, and I do remember this from both versions too. So in the Japanese version, in the story, it says that Ghidorah attacked and destroyed Venus, but in like the planet Venus, whereas in the U.S. version, Ghidorah attacks Mars.
Ye-
So I wonder why that made that change. I don't know, but
Yeah, I don't, not sure. And I also forgot to mention when Rodan came out of the mountain, and you know the different music in that scene in both cuts. Like they use the original music, and but in the but in the dub version they use a different stock music.
yeah, yeah, that's true. Well, I know that Akira Ifukube did the score for this film. Um, and so I think that in a way through the musical score there he's also creating a sense of continuity, right, by putting in those musical cues that we recognize from prior films. I mean, when we think about it, um no, the Mothra song wasn't in this film. I believe they had completely new Mothra songs, right? Didn't they
Yeah,
play
I
the
just
Mothra
noticed
song?
they didn't have the original Mothra song from
Yeah, I
Mothra
know
before.
the song Call for Happiness was like the
Yeah,
main song that was featured, which is a beautiful song, by the way. So it's used when Mothra's fairies eventually summon Mothra. So I like so my favorite aspect of this film. I'm going to go on kind of a tangent here for a second. I hope you're okay with that. Um my favorite aspect of the film is the fact that the kaiju become characters that get developed, right? Beyond just the humans. For example, we see the humans, they eventually come to Mothra's fairies and they implore them to summon Mothra to help, right?
yeah,
Because Ghidorah is hatching and destroying things. Godzilla and Rodan are battling because they're mad at each other and destroying things. So it's like all hell is breaking loose, right?
yeah,
So like Mothra then, like even as like an infant, because she's a larva, right? She
right.
kind of becomes like this catalyst for change. Because she is the character that eventually tries to convince Rodan and Godzilla to join her, and that marks as a huge like changing point for Godzilla's character, because from there on out Godzilla becomes more of a hero as opposed to a villain throughout
Yeah,
the rest
because
of the
this
Showa series.
yeah, this is like the first film that Godzilla actually becomes a hero. And
Yeah.
also one of my favorite scenes when Mothra is trying to have Godzilla Rodan's attention when they're fighting
Mm. And
and
she like sprays silk at them.
yeah, she's trying to get their attention, but they're too busy playing like basketball or volleyball. But
And
I don't.
you could tell like she was getting annoyed. Like I think they did a very good job with like the suitmation because like you could clearly tell that each of the kaiju were they had some sort of emotion going on. Like Godzilla and Rodan were mad. Mothra was like super annoyed at them for being stupid and not paying
Yeah,
attention. And
yeah, it kind of gives a little cartoonish moment there, and
yeah, so like I know a lot of Godzilla fans have kind of been critical of that before. Like they're kind of like, oh well, that's so cheesy. Of course, when they say that, I ask them like, well, let's talk about Godzilla versus Megalon. There are plenty of cheesy moments in that, right? But anyway,
yeah,
um, but like I think what really marked as a huge change in this film, as opposed to the others, is that they really humanize um, the monsters, right? Like the monsters literally are engaging in conversation with each other,
yeah, like
and Mothra's fairies interpret the conversation because they're telepathic and can understand.
yeah, it's like I mean, yeah, before that, I mean, when after Mothra sprays her silk on Godzilla, I like the way how Rodan like chuckles at Godzilla. Like, did they get a hand puppet for that? And
And then like she
not
sprays
so
silk at
hard.
him, and then she sprays silk at him, and he's just like, "What? Like what?"
Yeah, I was like, haha, what that? And also
That was so
after
funny.
Mothra sprays her silk on Rodan, I mean, when they shot that scene, I mean, you can see there's some water dripping off of Rodan. And I was like, what is Rodan sweaty?
Right, like there were some like interesting like texture things in that scene, right? Um yeah, Goji Fan 1998 says that this film was a huge success in the box office, which is probably why they made the decision to change Godzilla into a hero for the rest of the Showa series.
Yeah.
Um so like of course, like I've always had a really strong appreciation for Mothra, but I really feel like this film just cements her heroic qualities. Like she's a very selfless character. So
Yeah.
when she noticed that she wasn't making any progress with Godzilla and Rodan, she's like, whatever, I will go fight Ghidorah by myself, you know.
Yeah. And
Poor
also like
thing, of course, didn't stand a chance.
I also like the way how Rodan and Godzilla were looking at her. It's like when she walks away, it's like this, like
Right. So the interesting thing about that dialogue that they are having as characters is the fact that Godzilla and Rodan refuse to help for a specific reason, and they say that humanity doesn't deserve it.
yeah,
You know.
because one of them say they always bullying them.
Right. Right. So this is the first Godzilla film where we actually understand the motivation behind the characters, behind the kaiju, right?
Yeah, I mean this Godzilla isn't the original one. This is one from Raise Again.
Mhm. Yeah. So the fact that like cuz like in the original, well in even in the original film, like we don't really know what the motivation is. Like why is Godzilla attacking? Why, you know, like is it just because of territorial reasons? Is it because of he's searching for radiation? You know, we don't get that clarification, at least to my knowledge we don't. But for this film we see that Godzilla attacks humanity because humanity literally treats Godzilla terribly and treats Rodan terribly. So that was interesting. So like Mothra in this film becomes an advocate for humanity. Like she's arguing on humanity's behalf, even though humanity has also messed with her. I mean, let's talk about them doing nuclear tests near Infant Island. That's terrible, you know. So like she's really going out of her way to be like, "Hey, humanity isn't horrible entirely. We should at least fight to protect this world because we are all part of the world." I thought that that was a very, very interesting like takeaway for like a message that the film was giving.
Yeah, and I mean it's just this one of Mothra's babies. I mean, it's not the same Mothra from the original. It's just I mean I mean when the monsters were talking and the fairies are are translating what they're saying. I mean I picture in my head first. I mean I have a mix up lines. I just make this up in my head. I mean it's the same Mothra who attacks Godzilla in the end of the last film. I mean Mothra is asking Godzilla for help for the first time after she fought with him. I mean, and then Godzilla
Yeah.
was like, "Why do I need to help you? You just
It's like you
defeat
kicked my butt. Why should I want to help you?
yeah
Right?
you you just kick my butt and you just defeat me, and now you want my help." I just I just picture in my head, like what if that's Godzilla was saying to Mothra.
Yeah, I can imagine he was not very amused by that at
Yeah,
all. I know I wouldn't be, but um
and also
s-
and also in the U.S. dub, they say that Godzilla has a terrible language. Like, oh, Godzilla, what terrible language!
that was really
Yeah,
funny.
I like I like the fairies, English dub voice in the English dub because their English dub voice it kind of reminds me of a from an old classic Disney character voice.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I agree. It does kind of like seem that way. Oh my gosh, I just realized that doesn't Hiroshi is it like what is I think that's his name. I'm terrible. I should remember names.
Oh, you talk about the
Um
actor who plays Hiroshi,
yeah,
the
Hiroshi
bodyguard?
Koizumi plays Professor Mirai, who was also in Mothra versus Godzilla.
Oh yeah, I mean because in, he plays Tujo in the original Monster, and but in Monster versus Godzilla, he plays a different character. But
Mhm.
but then his character in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, his character is different too.
Right, like they had the same name, but like they had like different personalities, I think. I think they were trying to create some continuity between Mothra versus Godzilla and Ghidorah the Threaded Monster um, through that character because I thought that was because he seemed knowledgeable about like Mothra and um, like the island and the fairies. So I thought that was interesting. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and also it has the same reporter lady from Monster versus Godzilla. The
Yes,
yeah, but her character is different too in that.
Naoko. Yeah, I think yeah, that's her name, Naoko.
Yeah,
Um, so I wonder, well, because like in the Japanese version, the characters are more similar, but in the versions, because of the dialogue, they seem pretty different. At least that's from what I'm remembering. Because I remember when I found out that they were the same characters, I was just like, what? Like, how are they the same characters? So I started doing some research, but like again, like personality wise, they differ a little bit in the different versions. So
yeah, and oh yeah, and that bodyguard officer who is protecting the princess. I have a hard time remembering these Japanese names, and
his name was Shindo.
yeah, Shindo, and he is also the guy who was in the Return of Godzilla in the first Heisei film.
Oh, did he play the scientist?
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, his name is I have Toho Kingdom open right now. It's a very reliable website. I don't know if you've ever used it before.
I I used it before,
I
and
love Toho Kingdom. Yosuke Natsuki. That's his name.
yeah, I mean,
The actor's name.
yeah, I mean, I didn't even notice that he was in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monsters, and I mean,
Yeah, I didn't find out about that until until I was a teenager when I was watching when I because I used to be on like message boards and stuff and somebody brought that up and I was just like, "What? I didn't realize that." That's so cool.
and also the and also the guy who plays the doctor in this one who tries to get the princess's memory back that he having a hard time. I mean,
Yes.
and I forgot his name. I have a hard time.
The doctor's name is Sukamoto. The actor's name is Takashi Shimura, and I
It,
believe that didn't he play in the first Godzilla film?
yes, he did, and Ghidorah the Three Monster was his last Godzilla film he's in,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Now it's coming back to me. I remember that now.
and he was also in the original Mothra.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
In,
Yep.
okay,
I'm trying to remember what he played in that film. Was it a reporter? I can't remember. Anyway, what were you gonna say?
so let's talk about the princess herself. I mean, it's also like when for the plane scene when it when the princess I forgot her name. I mean,
So her name is Princess Salno. She's played by Akiko Wakabayashi, and she is the Princess of Sergina. So that is, if memory serves me correctly, a fictional country that they created for this film, which isn't the first time they've done that. They've remember in the original Mothra film, they created fictional um, countries like Rolisica and a fictional city, Newkirk City, right? So like I think they were doing that here too by creating like these fictional places. But anyway, what were you about to say?
Yeah, so and I was gonna say that scene when she was actually in a trance and uh, 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 by some alien people that was by this star thing. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that she saw the window and by this voice who tells her to leave the plane. And this is like the first Godzilla film that ever had aliens.
Right. And see, the
But
thing is, like, we don't really. Well, the interesting thing about this movie is that we don't really get to see the aliens up close and personal like we do in other films.
yeah, until they have the aliens in the next Godzilla film and Invasion of Astro Monsters.
Yeah. And I think that the princess at some point became because there was like an assassination attempt on her, right? When she was returning back to her home country. And that's when like the alien intervened um and supposedly the alien like she is possessed by an alien who was originally from Venus.
Yeah,
Hmm.
because but in yeah, because is I forgot what they call her in the original cut, and she come from the planet Venus, but in the U.S. dub, she came from the planet Mars, so that makes her a Martian.
Right, yeah. Yep. So yeah, it depends on which version you're watching, but ultimately like the alien that possesses her is from one of the planets that Ghidorah destroys. So that's why like it's like the alien is like super familiar with Ghidorah and is trying to like pass on the warning to humanity and be like, "Hey, oh my goodness, there's a horrible thing that's coming."
Yeah, and then she just the one thing that shocks me is like she just jumps out of the plane and she opened the door and then the plane exploded. I mean, and
That
I
scene was a lot. There was a lot happening in that scene.
I mean I thought when they first show her again as dressed up as a normal person, I mean I thought to myself, there's no way she can survive that fall of the plane.
Right.
Yeah,
But since she was being possessed by the alien from Venus, that kind of made her more powerful or more resilient, which is probably why she survived.
yeah, and I thought maybe those aliens were just trying to protect her.
Hmm. Well, yeah, because she became the only person that they could use to, share this warning that Ghidorah was coming.
Yeah, I mean, but when her planes explode, it was set up by the bad guys who were the same people who were they killed her father years ago or something. I don't
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who they were. They weren't like terrorists, were they? They were like assassins, like they were hitmen that like bad people hired that like they didn't want her to be their leader anymore or something like that.
yeah, I mean, and then one of the main villain in there is he always wears sunglasses in the whole film.
Yes, I
I don't
do
know if
remember.
you noticed, but he wasn't actually supposed to be the original bad guy in this film. It-
Really?
yeah, I mean, I forgot the other actor's name, but they were gonna have him in this film, but he was from Invasion of Astro Monsters as the main alien villain, and he was also in Son of Godzilla as the crazy guy, and he was also in
Oh yeah.
Godzilla versus King Ghidorah in the Heisei film as the guy who
Oh yeah, I know who
found
you're
Godzilla
talking about.
source. I'm talking about that actor. They were supposed to have him as the original bad guy in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, but they said he was too busy working some other film.
Trying to remember. I need to find his name. If I don't figure out his name, it's gonna drive me bananas. Yoshio Tsuchiya, the controller of Planet X in the next film. Yes.
Yeah, that's him. That's what I was talking about. Yeah.
That's so cool. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So I guess let's talk about, do we want to talk about some of our favorite scenes?
Yeah, let's talk about our favorite scenes.
Yeah, like we already talked about like the scene where Mothra is talking to Godzilla and Rodan. My other favorite scene, well, obviously, the final battle is amazing. like it's a great final battle where like Godzilla, Rodan, and Mothra join forces and try to defeat Ghidorah. My favorite scene is the scene where Rodan talks to Mothra and he's like, "Hey, crawl up on my back," and she does, and he ends up like flying her around and like spraying silk.
Yeah.
That was amazing. That was amazing.
Yeah, I like it when she once again sprays salt on King Ghidorah like, the same way she did to Godzilla in the last film. And also notice that when Godzilla is going up the hill after the village destroyed it, that Godzilla actually lets Mothra grab him by the tail and make her crawl up.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that now. That was a very sweet scene.
Yeah, but you notice that she already bit Godzilla's tail in the last film, and it'll be painful. But in this one, Godzilla actually lets Mothra ride with him on his tail.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Goji Fan 1998 is his favorite scene is where Godzilla makes his first appearance in the ocean, attacking the boat.
Yes, that was a really good scene.
Yeah, that was really good. I mean, also for that scene in both cuts, I mean, in the original, it just have Godzilla first appeared and he just attacks the boat. I mean, with a bunch of whales going by, but in the U.S. cut, after he first appeared, I mean, they just add Rodan and the flying scenes when Godzilla just spotted him, and then after his war of that, I mean, he just blasts the ship. It was his heat ray.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that usually the Japanese versions are better than the Americanized versions.
Yeah.
So I do love that scene. I love the battle between Godzilla and Rodan. It was kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
We cannot forget the scene where Rodan drops Godzilla on like a tower and it like hits him in an area that probably was not pleasant.
Yeah, when I saw it, I was like, "Oh, that's gonna hurt."
It like every time I see that scene now, I kind of die laughing. I'm just like, Rodan's got it.
Oh, and also when Rodan grabs Godzilla on the tail with his beak, when he just grabs it and just tugs it with it, I mean, I see that Godzilla's head was turning. I don't know.
Godzilla was like, "What are you doing?"
I know it's like Rodan is like controlling Godzilla's head of like grabbing his tail by his beak.
Yeah. It was an interesting scene.
Yeah, and wow, it's been 43 minutes already.
Oh wow, it has been. Time flies when you're having fun conversation, right?
Yeah, and also like let's talk for the scene when they're at the mountain where Rodan was sleeping, like that when the princess was warning the people that Rodan was sleeping, but some of they don't believe her. They always make fun of her. Yeah, it's just makes it like that's kind of rude. I mean,
they dismissed her like she was like a mentally unstable person. Like they kind of made her seem like that.
And also,
but then they ended up realizing that no, she is right. Just like things are happening.
And also the scene when the guy's hat was fall off and and then when that person is trying to go down and get it, that the actor of that he was I forgot his name. I keep forgetting these names. I mean,
I can't
he
remember that guy's
he
name
was
either.
he also plays the the tran the translator from King Kong versus Godzilla is the translator for the natives.
Oh, oh, what is his name? Yeah, I don't know his name, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um. So, oh, do you want me to share with you some facts about Ghidorah the three-headed monster? Some like trivia facts. Of
Go
course, I'm getting these from Toho Kingdom.
go right ahead.
All right. So apparently, according to Toho Kingdom, um, this film was originally titled. I mean, it originally had Gojira, Mothra, and King Ghidorah in the title, but then the U.S. version copyrighted it to Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. It was originally scheduled to be released in the spring of 1965. However, it was decided that it would be the New Year's film for 1964. So it was released at the end of the year in 1964. It's kind of like a holiday
Yeah,
time.
because both films, Monster vs. Godzilla and Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, were both released in the same year.
Right. Which is sounds like so hectic. Like let's see.
Yeah, in the U.S. dub, it was released a year after.
Mhm. Yeah, it was. Yep.
And it was
Um
released by I forgot the company. It was not by uh,
uh
American International Pictures.
it doesn't say. I don't think it says here. Yeah, it doesn't say it on Toho Kingdom. I'd have to go back and look. But another fact is the set for the Mount Fuji village was destroyed by Ghidorah took over 500 days to construct, and that was noted in the book, The Illustrated Encyclopedia of Godzilla. Another really cool fact that I did not know about until today when I looked these up. Director Ishiro Honda, in an interview, said that he was hesitant to let Mothra act as a mediator in the film, saying that he felt the monsters in that sequence were far too humanized, which is interesting. I'm glad, though, that they did do that because if Mothra did not humanize the other characters, the Showa era may not have lasted very long.
Yeah, and also in this film, they were gonna have Mothra becoming in her adult film in this film, but it
I'm
never
kind of
happened
I'm
because
oh, I wish they did that.
yeah, it's because the reason why is because of some wiring problem. The wires for the
Well,
monsters.
let's think about it. Ghidorah had a lot of wires. Ghidorah was huge, right? The Mothra prop, the adult Mothra prop, is even bigger than Ghidorah. Like the original Mothra is huge. So can you imagine Ghidorah with all his wires, Rodan with his, and then Mothra with all of hers? Like that would probably be a lot to handle. I bet you they just did not have the budget for it, which is
Yeah,
why they this is just throwing it out there. This is probably why they didn't have her as an adult in Destroy All Monsters because it would have cost more money. It would have been a lot cooler, in my opinion. But like I would have loved to see a giant moth slap around a three-headed dragon. Like
yeah,
that would have
she
been
was
really
slapping the
fun,
dragon with her wings. Like,
right?
yeah, I
But yeah,
mean,
that never happened.
and also another problem. I'm glad they didn't use Mothra in adult film because of the wire problems. I mean, if they have both King Ghidorah, Rodan, and Mothra flying around, and the wires were probably just wire really stuck attached to it.
Yeah, it could have probably caused like it probably would have cost them more money because of like damage and stuff like that. Yeah. I do have a couple of more facts if you're interested. Let's see here. Where was I? Toho re-released the movie in 1971 as part of the Toho Champion Festival. This involved editing the film and also retitling it. The new title was Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah: The Greatest Battle on Earth. For this process, the original trailer was also edited to replace the title. It's believed that the original source of the trailer was used for this, as an unedited version of the trailer has yet to surface since the dawn of the home video. And if we're looking at finances, this film did very well in the box office. It accrued about like 210 million yen. And film rentals, $1,300 or $1,300,000. That's a lot. Like it's, I would say, one of the higher grossing Godzilla films for sure.
Yeah, and it sold even more tickets than Mothra versus Godzilla, and a lot of fans keep asking how amazing King Dora is, and they want to have him in more films.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so they did.
Well, yeah, what they were doing is they were bringing their most popular characters together, right? Because like obviously Godzilla, Rodan, and Mothra are hugely popular in their own way, right? But then you bring in Ghidorah, this like new, fresh creature at that time, like that really made the stakes higher, right, for the characters, and it made it more interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, I love this film. It's such a good film.
yeah. I mean, and what do you give this film? Like, give us a number. Like, to me, I give this film like probably like uh, 8.5 out of 10.
I would say that's about what I would give too. Um, I don't think it's a perfect film. There are very few Godzilla films where I would say they are perfect, right? I personally, quality wise, I think Mothra versus Godzilla is better quality, probably because this film was rushed, right? Like in the same year.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. And
But it's still like it stands out, and it really again, like what I said earlier, it's a film that really changed the direction of the Godzilla franchise, and it kept the franchise going for all the way until 1975. Like that's pretty significant. It sustained the franchise with its new direction for at least another 10 years,
wow,
simply by changing one thing, and it was using Mothra to make or to convince Rodan and Godzilla to be heroes instead of villains.
yeah, and also I think I like the Japanese than the dub, but I like both cuts,
Oh
and
yeah, me too.
I just wish they could have redubbed it by using just the original Japanese uncut version, and just rather than just rearrange the film and just
Yeah. Well, there's a history of that with other Godzilla films though too. And I think at the time, like obviously Godzilla was created as a nuclear allegory, right? To create conversation about like how dangerous uh, nuclear weapons are and what they can do to nature, etc. But if we look at all of the Godzilla films in the Showa era, actually all the way up until the Heisei era, because the Return of Godzilla, this happens in the Return of Godzilla as well. In the American versions, they really kind of take out a lot of that like nuclear conversation, right? Because obviously that kind of paints the United States in a negative light, right?
yeah,
So I think they definitely do that in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster as well. I don't think not as much as the prior films, but it's definitely still present. Like the dubbed versions are always kind of like adjusting things like that to make it less, I guess you could say, political.
And also for the U.S. dub, I mean, I noticed that the picture quality is just it looks a little blurry.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah, and when I watched the original Japanese uncut film on the Criterion Blu-ray version, it looks so much clearer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It
Well,
just
and I
looks
think that didn't they like do some like restoration on it? I think they worked to make it clearer for that release, if memory serves me correctly.
yeah.
Something like that. So, I don't know how long you want to go tonight, by the way, but I do have one more question for you.
Go right ahead.
Um, if you could go back in time and do something different with this film, what would you do?
That's a good question. I mean, if I would, that's a actually that's a tough question. Now it's a good one.
I love asking tough questions.
Like I would like rather go back in time and just yeah ask the people who was doing their rearrange those films for the U.S. dub. I mean, as in like why can't they just use the original cut version and just dubbed it and instead of rearrange some scenes.
Right. If I could go back in time and change anything, I would probably find a way to include the adult Mothra. I would make something happen. I would make the magic happen. Because I just think like that final battle would have been so much cooler with that, with the adult, in my opinion.
Right. And wow, it's been an hour, almost been an hour already.
I
So
know we've been really going for it, haven't we?
yeah, it's well, it kind of looks like that's all we have to say about it, and I'm glad we finally did this episode, and it's one of your favorite Godzilla films, and
Yeah,
I
I'm
want to
glad that
say
you invited me.
yeah, and thank you for joining me. It was so much fun. You are my
Oh
very
yeah.
first special YouTuber guest on here.
You're so kind. Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I think you guys have been doing great with this show. Keep it up. I've enjoyed watching it so far. You've been having some great conversations, and I'm just honored to be a part of these conversations. So, and now I'll have to get you on my Growing Up with Godzilla show.
Yeah, you have to get me on one of your in one of your episodes soon.
Yeah, shameless plug for my show, Growing Up with Godzilla. Everybody, go check it out.
Yeah, and don't forget to subscribe to his channel.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I forgot about that. I'm more worried about the show than that, but thank you.
And so until next time, the next film is Invasion of Astro Monsters from 1965. And thanks for all for watching. I'll be back as soon as I can.
Have a good night, everyone.